But coming now to the last section of this show, the rapid fire round. The rules are very simple. I'm going to keep popping questions to you. You don't have to think. Whatever first comes to mind,
Okay.
you go ahead and say it, and we'll see if we find something very interesting to probably end today's conversation with. So, ready for the first question?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Ready.
Describe your journey from a lawyer to an investor in 3 words.
Exciting.
That's 1 word.
Exciting and very exciting and very exciting.
Okay. Play it safe with blue chip companies or dive deep into early stage startups? Choice.
Dive deep with early stage.
Okay. What do you think about working from home? For it, against it?
50-50.
50-50.
Yeah.
That's not really an answer.
Well, I'm against it.
You're against it.
Yeah.
Okay, good. All right. If law and startups were off the table, where would you find Anand Kumar today?
Startups.
No, if both were off the table, where would you find
Off
it?
the table.
Delhi University or
Goa.
Goa? Doing what?
On the beach.
On the beach.
Chilling out.
Okay. Which sector do you predict will get the most VC attention over the next decade?
I think generative AI for the next decades.
Generative AI.
Yeah.
Yeah, I believe so too. I think the power of this technology and the kind of transformative effect it has, right? It's amazing.
That's right.
I have not been so hooked on to a technology as I have been to generative AI in the last 3 months.
Yeah, because it'll come with guardrails,
Correct.
right? So because it has to, because it has a lot of downside also.
Correct.
Infringement of IP and stuff like that. But with all of that, I think it has a humongous potential.
Yeah, humongous potential.
Yeah.
I completely agree. Okay. What is your current top tool hack for managing your time or productivity?
Well,
Like, is there an app you're using or any new device that you're using that you really...
I do Yog Nidra these days.
Yog Nidra?
Yes.
How long do you sleep on Yog Nidra?
Well, it has really helped me.
Okay.
Yeah.
And are you doing this in the daytime or are you this in the Yog Nidra at night?
Early morning.
Early morning yoga.
Yeah.
Okay. First thing you do when you wake up?
After Yog Nidra,
Yeah,
I get a cup of tea.
You get a cup of tea. Okay, wake yourself up from the Yog Nidra. Okay. One piece of advice you would give your younger self if you had to do this all over again. Imagine it's 98
Yeah.
and you have a chance to talk to to Anand Kumar of 1998.
Yeah.
What's one piece of advice you would give him?
I would have forced myself to go to Valley much earlier.
Really?
Yeah.
Like, how much earlier?
At least in the moment I finished my law.
So at least get the flavor.
Yeah.
Because at 99 would have been a great time to be in the valley.
Absolutely. Because that really changed me, if you ask me.
Acha.
And that changed me, the concept there. Because I realized that even as a lawyer, I mean, there are two things. Like, one is that you have to, you can't just, I'm a lawyer, I can rent my so much of time.
Correct.
Right? And I be a professional, legal professional all my life. But apart from that, if you're doing something different, how do you get that piece of the company?
Correct.
Is what I learned there. Maybe if I had learned that much before, I could have looked at things differently.
Oh, interesting. So you're saying that how lawyers have taken sweat equity versus charging.
No, not even if they were to invest in a company. My simple concept is that you put in money, and it grows while you're working as a lawyer. That
I
money
see.
is
Your money
growing.
your money's working for you while you're also working for money.
Yeah, the power of compounding. I
Correct.
never realized that in India, but I did when I went there. So maybe if I had gone that a decade
Very
back,
interesting.
it would have been very different. The way I
But would you
have approached
recommend founders to start investing, or should they wait for their first exit, or should they wait for their liquidity from their company before they start investing?
No,
Very recent phenomenon.
No, they can start investing.
You would recommend that?
I would recommend them, as long as they make it clear and it's all above board. There should not be any non-compete clause and all of that they need to cover up.
I see. One thing about the Indian VC ecosystem you wish you could change overnight?
Well, I would reduce the shareholders agreement size to 2-page.
Really, is it possible?
It is. I think we'll have to do
I
something
think just
about
the definitions page itself.
it. We need to remove everything.
Remove
Just have one one big conciliation and arbitration clause. That's it. Very effectively drafted.
Really, that's it.
That's
Oh my God, that would be amazing. Oh my God, I think because especially as the startup gets bigger, the size of that SHA
Yeah.
only gets more and more daunting. Right?
Yeah.
Like people talk about, I read things before I go to sleep. I said I don't have the capacity to read anymore because some of these SHAs are effectively
And
the size of a book.
the problem is that we are over lawyering it, and also that's the biggest problem. The difference in the documentation I've seen in Valley in those drafts are that they don't reinvent the wheel, and they really mean by not reinventing the wheel. Here, when the SSH goes from one side to the other side, the wheel is completely khad ke bahar phek dete hain. What they'll come back will be completely different.
Yep.
So even if the draft which you see in Valley
Correct.
is actually, you will see that some of those sections are not even required there, but it will still be there. Everybody knows that it is there. It's not impacting this draft. Let's not touch that. Let's not get into
Correct.
But here it's not. It just, people go back and forth so many
But why
times.
do you think that is? Is it because, again, we've been in so many transactions where we send a term sheet, right? And we purposely make a very long, lengthy term sheet. This is something you and I agreed on.
Correct.
And we see that we'll send a long term sheet and we'll get like a term sheet back with like 100 comments on it.
Correct.
As if we've given an English paper.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
And negotiation on clauses that have nothing to do with
Correct.
the running of the company.
Correct.
Right? And just like they're trying to understand what we're trying to say versus just understanding that this clause is as the way it's written.
Correct.
And that's just normal process. That's how things are done.
Yeah.
Is that just because other lawyers need to justify their fees, or what do you think that is?
No, it's not even that. I mean, even that is not there, that justify the fee. Because that, number one, it's difficult to justify because mostly they're all fixed fee basis nowadays, right?
Achha.
So you're not charging per hourly. Sometimes I'm really surprised at why are they justifying? They don't need to justify that.
Correct.
So one of the reasons I feel is that, it's like, for example, I have to, let's say, draft a document in oil and natural gas practice.
Correct.
So there are certain things in relation to that oil and gas, which I don't know about it.
Correct.
I just go into the draft and I start, working on the draft without knowing what I'm doing. I'll come with random useless comments, right, which is not required there. I think that is what happens. So there are a lot of people who are, Johnny come lately, and those are the kind of people who think that, I have to do a value.
Correct.
I have to contribute in the draft, which is not required. And nobody would know that because, things get lost in the translation.
But don't you think it's time, like just like the US has the SAFE agreement,
Yeah.
right? We all as investors agree on a single SHA,
Yeah.
right? And that is the SHA moving forward.
So I think,
because I've seen sometimes, and sorry to cut you off here, but I've seen sometimes that so I'll have the same legal firm on the opposite side.
Yeah.
When I send them an SHA, right, which is drafted by you or by another legal firm, they will come back with objections to clauses. But when they are on the other side, which is they're on my side,
correct.
they are putting the exact same clause,
Correct.
and they have no objection to that.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
It's a very paradoxical,
Absolutely.
relationship.
Absolutely.
Which is why maybe I'm being a bit crude over here, but I feel that sometimes they're trying to justify their fees by just by just objecting to everything.
Yeah.
Mostly like the Indian Parliament, right?
Yeah.
Just object to everything.
Correct.
Right? Is that?
Correct.
I mean, how can we stop this practice?
Yeah, because as I said that justification of fees does not even come into picture, largely because I told you most of these are fixed fee.
Correct.
I think it could be more than that. It could be maybe satisfaction of the ego that look, we've changed the draft. I mean, what's the point in the redlining a draft just
Correct.
for the heck of redlining a draft?
Correct.
So it's always a better idea that what Y Combinator came with a safe document. If we have things like that, we cut down the size of most of these documents. It is a lot more important.
It will move deals much quicker.
It will move deals much quicker, absolutely.
I definitely think that's something that we should change about.
That's right.
I mean,
sometimes, like the transfer of shares between two parties.
Correct.
You don't need a very long share purchase agreement. I see share purchase agreement, you can just file a form, which is the minimum requirement of the Companies Act. Correct. And do it and move on, right?
No, yeah, definitely. I've seen with requirements of,
correct,
all kinds of things to get done prior to.
That's right. And this entire shareholders agreement, then it becomes part of the article of association because that's how the company gets bound to it. So there is no end to all of these, really, if you ask me. Half of the definition sections are not even required. So we need to have a big, one day we need to all sit together.
We need to go all to a Goa house.
Yeah.
You get us drunk.
Yeah.
And then get us to agree on one SHA and then we're done. Just moving forward, yahi chalega aur
Yahi
kuch nahi
chalega aur kuch nahi chalega.
Okay. Couple of questions. One hobby of yours that isn't common knowledge.
Cycling.
Cycling. Oh, you cycle?
Yes.
That's not even common knowledge.
That's
to me.
what I
when
do.
Did this start? When?
It's been for years, but of late I'm getting into more actively into it.
Wonderful! Wow! Yeah. And this is in Goa. Or you're cycling
here in Gurgaon.
Wow.
Yeah.
Gurgaon.
Yeah.
Okay.
Except on those bad smoky days.
Yeah. You're talking about the winters.
Yeah.
One book that you've recently read that left a deep impact on you.
I haven't read it I read it recently, and I keep reading that book again and again, and I recommend it to everybody. This book is called English August.
English August.
August
okay.
by Upmanyu Chatterjee.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's the book about?
So basically, this guy, he joins civil services, and he gets posted to a god-forsaken district called Madna.
Acha.
And how he deals with the bureaucracy there. Eventually, he resigns and he leaves. He joins a private job. But the whole take on India is just amazing. I mean, every time I read, and I find it so funny, so interesting, and every time I always take something from the reading of the book.
So it's called Indian August.
It's called English August.
English August.
Yeah.
English August.
Yeah.
All right. And so I'm guessing this was set before 1947?
Yeah, that's right. I think there's a movie also. Okay. No, not 47. It was in 80s, I guess. 70, okay. 80s, yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
All right. And I think, let's see. You know what? I have one more question that I'm going to ask you. Let me see. Where do you see courtrooms going? Do you think we're going to have courtrooms? Do you foresee that we will eventually have virtual courtrooms? Like what's happening in the US?
Yeah. We will have virtual courtrooms. In fact, thanks to, COVID, in that sense of the word, that, the way India emerged, I am really surprised, the way India emerged during COVID. And I could never imagine that, people in remote areas doing these virtual courtrooms and coming on these, Zoom or Meet links and all of that, including the judges. In some of the ones
Correct.
in which I went there, I was very surprised that, they would seek assistance all the time, the judges in the beginning, and the courts will not start because, in few of the arbitration, it was impossible for judge to maneuver the whole thing. So he would just take an order that, okay, fine, we'll do it next time. But, this whole interoperability of the whole system during the COVID, because of, digitization. Now we have that, where you keep your Aadhaar and everything. What is that called? DigiLocker. Yeah. I think how efficiently government came with DigiLocker and everything, I think that has given a complete impetus to this. So we've already emerged so far ahead in that. I definitely see that happening.
So then comes my real question. Actually,
yeah.
That was just a precursor. Do you see, and this is happening in the US, where you got generative AI fighting cases? Is that going to happen? Not happen?
Well, this is a very important question, AD, because I don't know how the camel is going to sit. Because generative AI, I told you in my last response also that it has to come with guardrails. So how effectively those guardrail comes for the generative AI, because you don't know where the infringement is happening.
Correct.
Unless and until that is protective, generative AI, I think that piece will take a bit longer.
But what you're calling a learning language model, which means it learns, which means you put a guardrail, it should learn how to get across the guardrail.
Well, that is something which will be very interesting because, you never know how. It also depends on how because, I've learned that with the learning language, the amount of emission it does, and there environmentally it is not, it's very, very degrading. So all of these things have to seen, the malicious content which is going to go, how things are going to come in the generative AI, which IP they are infringing, everything will have to looked into holistically. Wow. There I have my own sort of, virtual.
I think we'll leave that for another episode because that could go on forever.
Yeah.